Your next promotion is within your control, and this podcast shows you how to get there. Welcome to episode number 64. I am super excited about today's episode. It's part 3 in a 3-part series that I've been sharing with you called Executive Essentials. And in each part of this series, I have been highlighting an aspect of my executive ahead of time group training intensive. This is to give you a behind the scenes look at what actually happens inside of the program. I want you to feel empowered. If you are somebody who listens to my podcast and feels like, you know what, I am ready to put this work into action, I want you to feel confident that joining this program is not only going to set you up to never get passed over for a promotion again, but is going to introduce you to a community of other leaders like no other community of executive leaders out there. And it will also give you success once you do make it into those higher level leadership positions. So the reason why I'm so excited about today's episode is because I'm actually interviewing one of my powerhouse clients named Jennifer Fisher. So in today's episode, she's going to show you how executive ahead of time looks like in practical terms. It's a client case study essentially on the 6-step process that I teach and how each step along the way has helped her to have that success in her career. I can't wait to just dive right in. So let's go.
Welcome to Maximize Your Career with Stacy Mayer, a podcast about achieving your career goals while also being yourself.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Maximize Your Career. I'm your host, Stacy Mayer, and I'm pretty pumped. I have a really special guest for you guys today. This woman who is about to come on this podcast, you have heard me talk about her many, many times on this podcast. And you know what? You may not even know how much I talk about her because I don't always use people's names, but I'm always referencing her and her stories and what she has accomplished in our work together over this past year and a half. And I am so incredibly proud of her and just really how she has embraced the coaching and really shown up as an executive at her organization. And quite frankly, I'm pretty excited for her organization as well, because she is up to really big, big things. So I'll introduce her in a minute. We're still going to be a little vague, but for now, I just want to tell you what to expect out of this episode and why I'm doing it. So over the last 2 episodes, you've heard me go behind the scenes of executive ahead of time. I'm breaking down the entire process, exactly what you learn inside of my 6-week group coaching intensive. Now, Jennifer and I have been working together for a lot longer than 6 weeks. Actually, she came to me in, I looked it up, July of 2019. That was our first moment together. And I realized in thinking about why she has had so much success through our coaching, it's because she has done the executive ahead of time process that we're going to talk about today over and over and over and over again. So this process works, but then you reach another level and then you have to do it again. And then you reach that next level and you have to do it again. And by next level, I don't just mean a title change. I mean like your levels of growth, right? And so I really wanted to bring somebody onto the podcast this week that can show you what executive ahead of time looks like in practical application. If you're listening to my podcast and you've been listening for a while, I want you to feel confident. Oh my gosh, this stuff works. It's going to work for me. I'm ready to sign up. Let's do it, right? I want you to really know the benefits and the impact of becoming that executive ahead of time. And so Jennifer is the best case study I know for why this works so well and what it looks like in terms of practical application. So we're going to get into the behind the scenes and exactly what she has done and how she became not only that executive ahead of time, but how she became this phenomenal leader. And now she is transitioning into thought leadership as well and really putting herself out there in the greater community and making that impact, not just on her organization, but really on the world right now. And I just, my heart is so full and I'm so thrilled to have her on here today. So let me formally introduce her. Her name is Jennifer Fisher, and she is a global sales executive who was very recently, just last month, in fact, promoted to senior vice president of sales at her organization. And she is the host of A Life You Love Sales Tips with Jennifer Fisher, a podcast that you should subscribe to yesterday. In addition to mine, it's the second best podcast on iTunes. Subscribe right away. Jennifer, thank you. Thank you so much for being here with me today.
Oh my gosh, that was an incredible welcome. Thank you so much. I'm blushing if anyone can see me. And I need that pump up every morning when I get up. That's amazing. That really makes me feel good. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Jennifer, there are so many moments over the past year and a half. I was really thinking about you, and I have cried because of you sometimes. And we might get into it. And what I mean by that is we would have levels of growth. You would get to a certain point and you would feel so confident, right? Oh, I'm getting chills. And we'll go into all this, but it's just, she would feel really confident. It's like, and you might feel this way too. You get that win and you're like, okay, I got this. I'm developing a better relationship with my boss. I'm killing it. I feel like I understand these things. I'm definitely set up to get that promotion, or I'm definitely set up to succeed. And then, COVID happens, or, layoffs happen, or, that person that you were building trust with is no longer there. Right. So I remember she would shoot me these text messages, and, sometimes I'm like, yes, you did it. And then sometimes I literally would cry because we do come so far, right? And we do hit those milestones. But Jennifer is the definition of resiliency. So it's not that everything has been perfect and this has all been an uphill thing for her, just like where it was just super easy the whole time. And she just makes, and if you could see her, she makes it look very magically, right? It's like, oh, well, she can do this, but I don't know if I can. No. The only difference between what she's doing is that when she got knocked down, she got back up and she worked even harder and she put herself out there. And she talks a lot about this on her podcast, which is also why I recommend you listen to it, because it's just very inspirational. But yeah. So thank you, Jennifer, for showing up and for being willing to learn, willing to grow, willing to put yourself back out there over and over and over again. And I just want to celebrate you today for not only your big promotion, but the woman that you've become and the impact that you really are making in the world right now. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And I appreciate all of your help and support I can't believe it's all been almost 2 years. So very much. It's been an amazing ride, and you're right. It's peaks and valleys, and at the end of the day, I mean, that's life, right? So that's what we have to do.
Right. So let's go back in time, July 2019. Can you remember why you seeked out coaching or what you were looking for at the time?
I felt in my role at the time, being a vice president, I didn't feel that I was making the kind of impact that I wanted to make. And I was just very, very busy. Mm-hmm. I wasn't feeling like I was accomplishing or making that big impact, even though I was so busy and exhausted at the end of every day. I just didn't feel that I was doing my role.
Right.
I should be doing in a good role there. I just didn't feel that.
Yeah, because on paper, technically, you were good at your job. Right, there's no major complaints.
Yeah.
But you just knew that you could do better.
Right. And I just felt there was more I could do. Mm-hmm. But I just felt like there was definitely more I could do than probably what I was doing, but I didn't know what to do that next thing. Right.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's right where I was at.
Yeah. Well, it sounds very familiar. If you're listening to this podcast, you might be right there. And one of the things that you pointed to was this idea of being very busy. So perhaps because this episode is to really show you how all of the different modules inside of Executive Ahead of Time play out and the process that we went through. Let's talk about getting yourself out of the weeds. I think that is really one of the first things that we started working on right out of the gate.
That's
so
right.
What was that process like for you?
It was hard. It was very hard. And part of it as well, by reaching out to you, I absolutely love what I do. I absolutely love the company that I work for. And I just, myself personally, I just didn't feel I was accomplishing or doing things at the level that I should be doing it. Even though I was busy all day, I felt like I could give the company more. There were more things I could do to help the company and help my team. But I was so busy that I didn't feel that I was being that impactful. And that was one of the things that you pointed out. And I still remember this. It might have been like maybe it was our first conversation or second conversation. And I remember it was such an eye opener to me because even though, I was a vice president of sales, and I was going over like what I'm doing all day and what I'm doing. And you were very clear and said, you're not acting like a vice president. You're not performing like a vice president. And I was rather taken aback. I'm like, I'm not sure what she's talking about. But yet she went on to explain, as you kind of discussed, that I was so far in the weeds, that I was such a tactical level in the weeds that I wasn't being strategic at all. I wasn't being there to support my team or my boss or the growth of our team or the company at a strategic level because I was so busy in the weeds. And even though I was busy, it wasn't the busy that a vice president should be in helping to set strategic goals and initiatives and moving the company forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And it really is, I think, the first process of Executive Ahead of Time. One is that we know we need to be less busy. Like that was very clear. But I feel like the awareness and the big aha for you was that not only is it important from a time management perspective, but I can't scale. Like I'm not going to become a senior vice president. I'm not going to be able to make that impact at the larger organization if I don't do this, if I don't stop doing all of the tactical work. And
That's
even
right.
just that realization is what gets a lot of people started on this path of like, oh, I know I want to make a bigger impact. So I have to let go of some things.
Absolutely right. That's exactly right. And one of the things that you helped me realize as well is not only was it a benefit for myself so that I could be more strategic and operate at a higher level and make that bigger impact, but by doing all these tactical things, I wasn't helping my team grow. By even helping them take on some of these roles, that's a growth opportunity for them. And I think that also struck me too, because I care so much about my team and I want them to grow. And so when I also then realized what I was doing and kind of hoarding it from them, not
yes.
right? But now they're like in a position where they're like, hey, I want to do more. And I'm like, I'm too busy to help you with anything more. And that was a big realization for me as well.
Oh my gosh. So I have a little bit of a segue, which is obviously, I think very early on, we were really talking about how do you become senior vice president? So how do we make this impact? But the title was involved in there, right? Because it's when we think about growth, it's what's that next level of growth in terms of title and responsibility and maybe what I'm overseeing. And I remember this shift where we were specifically talking about how do I become senior vice president to how do I change myself? How do I start making this impact? Like you said, allowing your team to grow, allowing yourself to shine at that more strategic level. We sort of put the title like on a shelf for a little while.
Right. That's right.
Right. And so that you could really just focus on your work. And like you said, at the least becoming the best vice president possible.
That's right. And being the fact that that was the main reason I had reached out, was just I could make a bigger impact in my current role. And, obviously I always, everyone has their next level, what they want to do. And that senior vice president was always something I wanted, but I also knew I just wasn't performing the way I wanted to be performing at a VP level.
Yeah.
And that was the first thing, is like, let's kind of get our house in order at this level, and then, kind of go from there. And there were, I did have a lot to work on.
Yeah. And, that is literally the definition of executive ahead of time. It's like, let's get our house in order, right?
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we're performing at our best. So then it makes it a no-brainer to move into that next level position.
That's right. So true. So true. And like I said, there was a lot that I worked on.
Do you have any stories about a way that you were able to think more strategically because you pulled yourself out of the weeds, or anything like that you wouldn't mind sharing?
Yeah, absolutely. By pulling myself out of the weeds, and it was probably, again, the timing of it, I think, was really good. To your point, now that I realize it was like July of 2019, we were working through this during the fall. And as we went into 2020, COVID hit. And and thank goodness, because I was already out of the weeds and I was able to think strategically. Even in January, I started putting a strategy plan in place if COVID moved out of Asia. So here's what we're going to do. Like, we have some Asia programs, Asia work that we're doing. So we have to adjust. But we're good right now. But then in February, we had to pivot again, because then COVID was coming in through Europe. And being a global company, we were having some massive impacts with that. So I was able to quickly put another plan in place to adjust to that pivot. And then, of course, the third time, when it was coming into the US, and it really was, we were realizing it was going to be an issue here in the US, we implemented our third strategy, which ended up being, the third strategy got us through pretty much all of last year very successfully. But I'm very grateful for the fact that I had already been out of the weeds, so I could have been working on the strategy and moving forward instead of reacting in a to things. And that was probably the biggest eye opener for me.
Yeah, because if you are in that reaction mode, if you're just solving the problem, the only way that you're going to be able to solve the problem, whatever problem that might be that comes up, is because you are the smartest person in the room. Now, what I mean by that is you have the most brilliant idea. And that's a lot of pressure, right? Like, most of the time, it's actually about being resourceful, being able to pivot. And Jennifer actually taught me this. So this is a Jenniferism, is focus on what you can control.
Yeah.
She can't do that if she's just solving problems and reacting, right?
That's
She
right.
can't focus on what she can control. She can't be resourceful, right? And so that's really the sign of an exceptional leader, is not just because they have the most brilliant ideas. And I think this is really important for you as a listener to realize that as you continue to advance, you might not be putting yourself out there because you think you need more training. You think you need to be smarter. You think you need more experience. When in reality, you just need to be a better leader.
That's right.
Right?
It's the backbone. Yeah, it's the foundation. Absolutely.
Yeah. So cool. So you're able to start to make this impact. And
Yes.
I remember, and this, we're going into module 2 of executive ahead of time, which is 3Xing your vision. And you're able to think about, whoa, like, where am I headed? What do I really want? And can you explain a little bit about what 3Xing your vision means and what that process was like for you?
Absolutely. It was, again, another eye opener for me. When we first started talking about 3Xing my vision, my vision, I was like, well, I feel like I'm really working in my VP role. I really like that. And you're asking me, what's your vision? 3X it. I was like, well, the next step would be, senior vice president. And you're like, go one step further. I'm like, oh, I don't know about that, and so I couldn't even think that far ahead. Like, whoa, let's not, let's not push ourselves. But it ended up being just a fun exercise that we're like, well, what if, I did more. Like, what's the thing outside? What's the next thing after as senior vice president? Let's start talking about that. And I was like, wow. I'm like, okay, this is kind of fun. But then when you're realizing what you're doing and then the skill sets you need as you're 3Xing that vision to move up, it doesn't seem so crazy anymore. Like, you're really like, right, like, actually, why not? Like, why not? Like, and it's all about that bigger impact that you can make, whether at your organization and with your team. And it's all positive. And it was such an eye-opening. And at the beginning, it was a little like, whoa, I don't know. I've never thought quite like this before. But then it was fun. I was like, why not? Let's do this. Let's write it up.
And one big thing that I noticed is once you started 3Xing that vision, you started talking a little bit more about your relationship with your CEO. Right. And It was like, how do I get to know him? Right. It's like when we start to think bigger, we realize where those gaps are in terms of our influence and impact that we can start to make. And we really get playful, like you described, like, why not? Why not? Like, I have things to offer,
That's right.
And so when you start to think that way, then you show up differently. And then little things like getting out of the weeds or whether or not I think there was one time where you were like, you know what, Stacy, I'm no longer going to organize the meetings.
That's right.
Right. And so it's like when you're 3Xing your vision, not organizing the meeting is obvious.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God, of course I'm not supposed to be the organizer of the meeting.
That's right. I'm not taking notes. I'm not organizing the meeting. Like,
right.
Exactly.
But because we're so used to being in that role or having whatever is defined for us and feeling like we have to stick that out. And then like, oh, well, once I become senior vice president, I won't have to organize. No, we stop today.
We're doing it. That's right. And again, that's just another thing where, people on my team were thrilled to be able to organize a meeting.
Yeah.
Again, I was not thinking of them, just a task that I was holding on to. So things like that, it was such an eye opener.
Oh, so cool. Yeah.
Yes.
And I think it's really fun and it's a great inspiration and reminder. And I think I'm going to take a minute and sort of talk about this transition into starting your own podcast. So we're going to take a little bit of a detour. So starting your own podcast is not part of the executive ahead of time training. It is a result of what happens when you 3X your vision. So when you're thinking really big and when you're really thinking about, okay, I can make this impact on my organization and I can also do this. So tell us a little bit more about that process into what I would call maybe stepping into thought leadership. Jennifer Fisher, actually know something about sales and have a whole lifetime of experience that I would like to turn into knowledge that I can share with other people and my expertise.
That's right. And it was something that, as we've talked through, my roles over the years and being in sales, I love it. Like and even right now in my career, I feel like I'm the most luckiest person in the world because I'm doing what I absolutely love. And I'm doing it for a company that I absolutely love working for. So I'm thinking, oh my God, like this just can't get any better. And then thinking about like, just how could I share some of this? Because I have such a passion for sales and for building relationships and kind of being that trusted advisor, that how can I share that with other people who are coming up or just starting their career in sales or, needing a little bit more inspiration and understanding. And again, it was one of those, a podcast, and it was like a little giggle, like me doing a podcast. I don't know about that. But again, part of that 3X in the vision, you would say, well, why not? Well, I don't know why not. But just me doing a podcast, and of course I'm like, who's listening to me? Like, but I have a lot to share, and it's great knowledge, and it's fun for me, and it ended up just being this great path for me to really just focus on some positive things and keep moving forward in a fun way, but in a way of thought leadership that I'm really, giving something back to the field of sales and helping people along the way. And,
it happens very effortlessly when you do the other steps first, which is like getting yourself out of the weeds, being able to think more strategically. and then really thinking big about the impact that you want to make. Again, it's like, yeah, I'll start a podcast. Like, why not? Right? Of course.
That's right.
And
that's right.
yeah. And it doesn't become another item on your to-do list. It's basically just like, no, I actually want to share this and make a bigger
That's right.
impact on the world. Right. And the
That's
other
right.
thing is that you have resources, you know, people, right? That it's like you have that network, you're able to
Yes.
connect. And so you're doing amazing interviews and bringing people. It's just, there's so much fuel there, right?
Yes. Thank you. It's been really fun. I've had just a great time with this the last couple of months. It's really a joy.
So in terms of the podcast, anything that happened at work as a result of the podcast?
And, it's very interesting that you say that because, again, the purpose of this was me, just having fun, right? I just, why not? And let's do this. And, the side benefit was that I'm really able to help and share my knowledge with other sales professionals. But then at work, and I didn't really say a lot to anybody. I'd let my boss know, and I talked a little bit about it. But for me, it was something I was kind of doing on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And I was excited about it, but people were listening at work, and so they really started even seeing me in a different light as this expert in sales, right? As this leadership expert, in sales. And that ended up being something, again, I wasn't thinking of. That wasn't my intention going in, but it was a result that, now people, are asking for my opinion or, wanting to pick my brain on something with sales and working through other divisions with other sales leaders and just brainstorming. And it's been really transformative.
Can I remind you that Jennifer was still a vice president at this point? And now I'm not diminishing her role in any way, but there was literally like a point where I was like, oh my gosh, you are an executive now, right? Like I think when you were a vice president, you didn't quite have a seat at the table yet. Now you do, right? But
yeah.
It was like almost like, 100% the executive ahead of time, right? It's just like all transformed
So
right
true.
in front of my face. And so this podcast, everything that she's experiencing, being brought in to talk to other divisions is happening at her same level.
That's right.
And
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So she's already doing this role. She's very happy. She loves the job that she's doing. We're not necessarily focusing on the title, but yet it's a very clear path. Like we know that it's coming. It's not a matter of like if, it's just a matter of when. So
that's right.
I can hear a lot of listeners happening who've been in their role too long and they're deserving of that promotion, right? That title change, right? They're like, I'm doing the job ahead of time. And it's actually really frustrating because I'm not getting compensated properly, or I'm not. What was the difference? Because I don't really think ever did I notice a sense of frustration. So what do you feel like? Actually, maybe early on you were frustrated, but that was mostly just because you felt like you were working your tail off and you're like, why am I working so hard? And you work really hard now, but you work smarter. Right.
That's right.
And so
that's right.
So, but at this point, when it was just so obvious, you were like a senior vice president, how did you practice patience to be able to, get everything lined up so that you could move into that role?
It's a good question because at the time, yes, my goal was always to be like a senior vice president. That was definitely something I wanted, but I also knew, in this COVID industry, the way, things are shaking up much differently, but I was still very content and happy with myself that I was still working at a very high level. And whether my title was senior vice president or vice president, I was very happy with my accomplishments. I was very happy with the impact I was making across the organization. Still wanted that title, but knew, that things are out of my control with COVID, and we were having layoffs. I just obviously, it's going to be a while, and things happen, and that's okay because I felt I was very content and I was very happy with what I was doing in my career and in my thought leadership. And I knew I had such confidence that I was making an impact.
Yeah. And you were.
Yeah.
Right? You
Absolutely.
were
Yes.
actually making that impact. And I think that's the difference when people don't have that patience, when they feel very frustrated. Really, the problem that they're experiencing is that they're not able to make the impact that they want to be making. They think that it will come with the title change. But so often it comes
Yeah.
within yourself and what you need to change in yourself and your habits and the way you're communicating and thinking about yourself as this executive.
It's so true. And thinking back, probably the last couple of years working with you, it was, 99% of it was me. 99% of it was showing up differently. It was my viewpoint, my, perception, and how it was just about me focusing of how I can be operating as an executive ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it really was, me. It wasn't, my boss or somebody else. Like, I'm like, for me in my career, like I want to be operating at this level. And it's amazing, but it's all on you. Like you have to kind of change your attitude a little bit, your perception, your everything is all you. How am I showing up differently?
Yeah. And that reminds me of also the work that we do on managing our emotions, right? Which is like the idea of our attitude and how
That's right.
and I can just tell that, I think in general that you're a fairly positive, lean more on the positive side, even back when we first started working together. But yet there's a different sort of, it's positivity, but I would call it power. There's this like, grounded confidence that you have now that is equally positive, but just has a lot more power to it. And I think that some of that comes from this idea of working on your emotions and where your frustrations are. Can you speak to that process at all?
It does definitely, that was a huge pivot area for me, and kind of focusing on my emotions and my expectations and my reactions, right? So I'm not reacting to things. I love the words that you use, the grounded confidence. That's exactly how I feel right now. And I didn't have that at the beginning. I didn't have that at the beginning, but it really is that grounded confidence, right? And again, it's again how I'm showing up and how I'm reacting to things. And then how like working with other people and maybe helping them not react to things so much either.
Sure.
And helping them think through maybe another way of thinking about things, right? And just kind of realizing that, it is about me. It's about how I'm showing up and how I can affect some changes with the people around me as well.
So Jennifer actually took the actual executive ahead of time program in our inaugural class last year because, I've been working with her longer than the program has existed. And essentially I created the program out of the work I was doing with my one-on-one clients, like the actual practical steps that I was doing with each one of them to get them into higher level leadership roles. And I put that into this 6-week group coaching intensive. And then I launched it at the end of last year. And Jennifer was able to be a participant in that program. And I wonder if you could speak to the group. So now we're adding in the community aspect. So when we're one-on-one coaching and I'm taking her through these processes, it's just the two of us, right? So Can you talk about how powerful it was to be in a group of other, what I call corporate badasses, and
yes,
and what you learned from that experience?
Absolutely. And it was interesting because, going into it, I wasn't sure about the group setting because I'd been working with you so much one-on-one, but it was invaluable. So it was really amazing. And the cohort that we had was phenomenal. And so hearing about everyone's situation as we're going through the course and going through the modules and talking about our real-time experiences that week of what was happening. And in some cases, there were many opportunities that I was able to offer some advice, because I've gone through the same thing and I was able to offer some advice. And then it was also interesting to hear from other people if we say, you know what, this was kind of a rough week this week, and blah, blah, blah. And then having somebody say, oh, have you tried this? Or have you thought about this? And so it ended up being just a really phenomenal session going through all those modules and really just applying some everyday things and seeing things from everyone else's point of view, I think is just invaluable.
Yeah. I love the switch. This has happened to me as well. Like I belong to some communities that I've been involved in for a while. And so I have like, even if it's just time, I have a little bit of like a year ahead of them. So newer people are coming in. And one of the things that I find so interesting is as far as I have grown over the last few years, then I'm reminded when I see them how much I have grown. But then
That's
I'm
so
also
true.
reminded of where I still need to grow, right? Like, so it's like, it's the reflection in the community of everyone that we can all just lift each other up.
Yeah. And that's a good point to the reflection, because I mean, there were times where something would happen and I was able to give advice because I was like, last year I was right there with you. I remember going through that last year. Right. And so, part of that reflection, it did make you realize at the end, like, man, I've really come a long way. Like I've really, it's just something to be very proud of.
Yeah, I'm very, very proud of you, Jennifer. I say that all the time.
Well,
big
thank
heart.
you.
Big
You
heart.
are amazing. Honestly, you are definitely the right person to go to in July of 2019.
Yes, I'm so glad you found me.
Yes.
So what's next for you? What do you feel like? Anything you want to share with us?
Gosh, I am very excited as I continue down the path with my podcast. I am working with a few other organizations. I've been asked to be a mentor to some young sales leaders, some young female sales professionals who are looking to get into some leadership. So I'm actually working through a mentoring program with there to help people. I've been asked to help lead a leadership workshop with some colleagues in an organization that is close to my company. So I'm working with them right now and putting a leadership, workshop together. And, the other good thing, which I'm super excited about, is at our organization, we have launched employee resource groups. And one of the resource groups is for women and, all women with, any background, race, diversity. And I am the executive sponsor. So I am just having a ball. I have an amazing group of 3 women who are my chairs for the ERG, and these 3 women are amazing. And some of them I didn't really know that well, so it's so amazing again to have that community and be able to offer this community to our whole company. It's just phenomenal. And again, I just feel like I'm the luckiest person in the world.
Yeah. And also I'll add to this because you're talking about all these other things that you're doing. So in January, she was promoted to senior vice president, huge
right.
Congratulations.
Yes,
it was one of those things that was like, of course. Right. And now she's getting to be able to make a bigger impact at her organization as well, which is really what she wanted to be doing all along. So
That's right. It's just, I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled. And I'm having a ball because it's what I love to do. And I just love the company that I work for and that I'm doing what I love here. It's just, I'm great. And again, you think like, oh, this wouldn't have been possible. And it wouldn't have been possible if I was still showing up the way I was showing up 2 years ago. And so it really comes back to you. You have to put the time in. You really have to put the effort in. You're very frank with me many times. And there are times where I'm almost like, what are you talking about? Why is this my fault? Like, I don't understand, but you have to be open to these things. And I know, I was also that growth mindset. That's who I am. Always want to get better. I always want to get better in sales and leadership, no matter what it is, I want to get better. And, you would, help me and say, you need to think of it this way or try this. And I'd like, okay, I'm going to go do it. And I'd go do it the next day. And then I'm texting you like, oh my gosh, this
just
happened.
Oh
my gosh. And, but it's good, but it's about you. Like you have to show up and you have to put the work in. And like you said, the 2 years, it was hard, ups and downs. And it was crazy, but you have to make that commitment. You have to put the work in and you have to have that growth mindset and try new things.
I feel like the growth mindset for you is much closer to your grounded, confident, powerful self. And we forget that. And so what we're thinking at the beginning is, I just want to be making a bigger impact, and this isn't fair, and this is happening to me. And so what we did is, through coaching, we shifted into, what are those areas of growth? How can we start challenging ourselves to do better? And then you're able to do that. And then as a result, you're able to make that impact that you wanted to be making the whole time.
Yes, it's so true. Exactly. That's exactly right. And
Yeah.
Confidence is just so key.
Yeah. So, any last words of advice or wisdom for our audience, a corporate leader who's looking to, feeling a little bit stuck, wants to make that bigger impact and not sure what to do next?
Yes, I would definitely say, number one, definitely get a coach. I mean, and of course, I'm just saying this, Stacy's amazing, but you need that objective. You need somebody who's objective to, sometimes give you that swift kick sometimes, right? You got to stop thinking this way, or why are you thinking this way? So you need somebody objective to really help you. And when you think about it, all great people have a coach. The best baseball players have a coach. The best actress has a coach, right? These people are always a coach because they need that. They need that objective view of saying, hey, here's where we're at. So that would be number one. And again, follow your passion. And don't expect things, just because you want a title change. It just doesn't work that way, right? So think about, again, taking some of the title out of it, and think about how are you contributing at work? How are you showing up at work to make that impact? And I think the way you worked with me is that's where you have to start, right? And maybe a title change isn't going to happen, right? But if you're showing up differently, you're going to be able to achieve a lot of your goals that way as well, and goals for the company. And then eventually things will fall in place because you are executive ahead of time.
100%. Totally. Yeah. So tell us, how do we find you? How do we find your podcast? How do we follow you?
Oh my gosh. Thank you. Thank you. So definitely I am on LinkedIn. So please look me up on LinkedIn, Jennifer Fisher. I am all over LinkedIn, and my podcast is A Life You Love, Sales Tips with Jennifer Fisher. And it is on every podcast streaming. Search for that no matter where you go, and you will find it. And again, you can always reach out. My email is, I keep it simple, jen@jenlovingsales.com.
I love it.
There you go.
Jen Loving Sales. Oh,
that's right.
It's so amazing. You're such an inspiration, Jennifer. You inspire me to do more, to make a bigger impact as well. And I am just so grateful for you to be able to share this wisdom and your journey on the podcast today. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I thank you very much.
Before you go, if you were listening to this episode and you thought to yourself, I want to become the executive ahead of time, I want to set myself to not only be a shoo-in for my next promotion, but I would like to have success once I get there, then I invite you to check out my 6-week group coaching intensive program called Executive Ahead of Time. Over the course of 6 weeks, I am going to take you through 6 core training modules, all designed to elevate your leadership so that you can start to be seen as that senior executive leader. You're going to have weekly group coaching sessions with me so that we can begin implementing what you're learning immediately. And you're going to have roundtable discussions with a group of powerhouse women and male minority leaders who have the same goals as you in mind, who can all elevate each other to reach that next level of success. So if you are wanting to set yourself up to never be passed over for a promotion again, then I invite you to go to executiveaheadoftime.com. That's executiveaheadoftime.com to learn more today.